My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours. We're a music podcast that chats to artists, musicians and creatives on their songwriting craft and upcoming projects. I'm your host Simon Fink and welcome to episode 239. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. We've got a wonderful guest today in the form of Aussie pop star Conrad Sewell. Before we get to our chat with Conrad, make sure you go and subscribe to the podcast, leave a review or rating if you'd like, as that really helps get the name of the pod out there. Also, while you're online, please follow us on all of our socials. You can find those details in the show notes of today's episode. Today's guest is Conrad Sewell. The Aussie singer-songwriter has returned after a few years away and out of the spotlight. Fans would know Conrad for his ARIA award-winning track Start Again that basically saw him travel the globe and play to quite a few people worldwide. He also supported artists like Ed Sheeran and Maroon 5. Conrad is now back with a brand new studio record in the form of Precious. It is a beautiful record. I feel like every artist's most recent work is kind of their most special and closest to their heart, but I feel like it might ring a little bit more true for Con, who basically his everything has gone into this record. He's discussed previously how he wanted to make a record that was more of a true embodiment of who he is as a musician and a songwriter and a singer. And I think with this record, he has done a beautiful job of that. It's a record that you can hear the electricity in the room from these sessions, that these songs, it's almost like he's tried to take that live energy and chemistry that you get from a real show and put it onto tape, onto a record. These musicians and songwriters who have contributed to this record, you can tell that they absolutely love what they're doing. In today's episode, we are chatting to Conrad about why making this record was so important to him and his thoughts on the results and how it came out. We're discussing the all-star band that he kind of put together to execute the record and some of the guidance that he found along the way with it. We also discuss the biggest change in his life, which was becoming a dad over the last number of years, and when we can expect to see Conrad back on the road in Australia. All of his social details and where you can find and purchase Precious can be found in the show notes. And we want to say a massive thank you to Annastasia at Sony Music Australia for her help with today's episode. Here is our chat with Conrad Sewell.
We can never lose it. Don't stop spinning. Don't stop spinning around.
Please welcome to This Song Is Yours, Conrad Sewell. Hello, sir. How are we?
I'm very well, mate. I'm very well. I'm excited. I haven't done many podcasts, so this is a one of the first for me, which is nice.
Oh, well, thank you very much for allowing us to hopefully be a positive experience for that. We'll wait. Maybe we'll get you to fill out a questionnaire at the end and see how the experience goes. Are you a big podcast person in general? Do you listen to many podcasts?
I've started to listen to a few, yeah. I mean, in the last couple of years, just like, just the classic ones like Joe Rogan and, there's a few ones more on the self-development stuff. I dive into it, but yeah, it's enjoyable. I do like listening to them.
There is a certain, I feel like there's a kind of, it's one of those things where there's something for everyone. And if you want to, self-improvement, I find that I tend to listen to a few that help me to sleep, if that kind of makes sense. That there's some people just have very soothing voices that help you trail off.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, I love it. I mean, love going for a long walk, putting in a podcast. It's gets you in a good headspace. So hopefully this is one of them for other people.
Exactly. If I'm putting anyone to sleep, I apologize. Hopefully that is not the case, because this new album from yours is definitely not a quiet record. It is a beautiful piece of work, mate. There's a new record out from you called Precious. It's out now. Firstly, congratulations.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. It's I poured pretty much everything I have into this one, so it's nice to hear that you enjoyed it, and I hope everybody else is enjoying it. I'm pretty certain that there's so many people that are very happy that it's out right now. You've got a very dedicated and loyal fan base. Is there, I guess, on releasing new music anytime, regardless of whether it's an album, an EP, single, is there nerves in terms of how it's going to be received by that very loyal and loving fan base? Not really. I mean, I feel like this record, I've been gone for so long, and I haven't put music out in over 3 years, and this album took so long to make because of the way we made it, and because of going through the pandemic and everything. It was, I was back and forth from America. I did four quarantines. We sort of recorded it in chunks, and I feel like my core fans, whatever I do, they're going to enjoy, because there's an essence of me that comes through all of these songs, and I'm just really telling my stories. And just this time I've done it in a way where I've, musically, we've arranged the music, we recorded it all live, obviously. So it was, it was a very different sounding record to Life, which was my first album. But I feel like they'll almost be, I almost kind of know that they're going to love it, because I just feel like with this one, I just got to go that extra bit that I never got to go before, because I had a budget, and I had, a studio, and I had incredible musicians. And so it's just sort of like, to me, this is just the first record, but, allowing me to sort of flex and put arrangements behind the songs, and then not just be piano ballads, which is essentially what the first album was.
100%. I want to almost, if you'll allow me to, classify it as a bit of a passion project. I know that it was really important that some of these songs were kind of made in a certain way and arranged in a certain way, and kind of were a true vision, might not be the right word, but like a true embodiment of what you were wanting to do and say and be as an artist.
Yeah, I mean, it was just sort of where I was at in my life. Like, I think I finished a tour, and then the COVID started, and I went away, and I sort of went through quite a dark stage, I guess. And I sort of was questioning everything as to why I was still making music, what kind of music I wanted to make moving forward. And I just started writing these songs, and I wasn't co-writing with anyone, because obviously the world was shut down, and, you couldn't really get in the studios with people and collaborate like I had in the past. So the only person that I was around was Adam MacDougall, who co-wrote a lot of the stuff on the record, who played in the Black Crowes. And he was an incredible piano player. So I would just sort of, started the whole process with him, writing songs. We wrote about 4, I think, out of the 12. And then, it was just sort of, it was just kind of where I was at. I'd finished performing a tour, and I came back, and I was like, I want to put that energy onto a record, because I feel like with my voice, ever since I started in this industry, there's always been something that hasn't been able to be translated onto a CD, and people would come and see my live show, and they'd be like, wow, I love this kid. But then they go listen to a record, and they'd be disappointed almost, because of the lack of energy that, a pop, I'd worked with all these big pop producers, and it was like, they triple stack my voice, and before you know it, I sound like everybody else, and it's just a clean pop song. And that was really important with this album, like cutting everything really raw and off the floor. And, I would sing live with the guys in the band, even if we had, bleed coming back through the speakers, just to get that energy. So it felt like, you were really in the room with us. And yeah, you're right. It's kind of like, I don't know whether we have that pop hit on this album again, but for me, this was a record that I had to make. And I think it's going to be an important one, because no matter what comes after this, I feel like people are going to go back and listen to this album and be like, well, that was at least the truth. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. For this record, you You mentioned Adam just a second ago, who, as mentioned, played with the Black Crows. I think that you did have a bit of a, I want to say, like, assembled a bit of a crack team almost to help with this record. Zane Carney, who's worked with or toured with John Mayer. Who else was there? Aidan Moore, who I think has worked with one Justin Timberlake. When you've worked out what sound you kind of want to have for this record and how you want to do it, what's the process in assembling a team that's going to help you create the record that you want to make, if that makes sense? I guess, were these just mates you had in your little black book, or?
It's kind of a bit of both. I mean, Adam, obviously, we met because we were both going through some stuff at the same time, and that's where we started writing. But Zane I had known previously, and once I had the songs and I had met Projay, who's produced the album, and we were like, okay, cool, well, let's try and record it as live as possible. That's when I was like, okay, cool, well, who do I know that's the best players that I could possibly get to? Zane, obviously, as a guitarist, I've known him for years, and like I used to, we used to watch videos of him when he was in his band Carney, and me and my old guitarist used to just, we just considered him the greatest guitarist in the world. So, and I was lucky enough to know him, and I sent him the songs, and he was like, dude, I love the songs, I'm in 100%. And then the regiment who were the horns, he played all the horns on the record. He knew them, so then we brought them, and they played with Justin Timberlake, and they knew Aidan. And then Victor and Drizzo, who played drums on the record, I had known. He actually played on my EP a long time ago and has played for everybody, but mainly now plays for Alanis Morissette. But just as a drummer, I've never ever been in a room with somebody that can play drums like that. And just, I mean, anybody who ever watches him play drums, it's insanity to watch. His pocket is incredible. So before we know it, we had, this all-star lineup of a band, and then we went in and we just sort of started tracking it. But it was really amazing because, some days we would always go in and try and arrange the songs, and then the band would have a crack and we'd try and capture what we had live. But then, we'd spend days where Zane would just, play guitar for hours and hours, and we would mess with guitar sounds. We would have, be changing the parts, and it'd be like, no, let's make it more, like Cat Stevens here, and like, let's do, although let's make it more Stonesy. And because we were recording in Jackson Brown's studio, we also had access to all of Jackson's guitars and amps. So, I mean, I don't even think we were allowed to, but every now and then Jackson would pop his head to the studio, and he would be like, oh, that sounds great. He's like, maybe you should try this guitar on it. And he'd go next door to his warehouse and bring another guitar across that he thought would sound cool. And so, the whole recording experience was, a once in a lifetime thing for me, especially seeing I'd never done it. My first album was not recorded. I didn't record the album. I just went around the world and wrote a bunch of songs with a bunch of people I didn't really know. And then, put all those songs on an album, and that was it. Whereas this was like a project, like you said. So it's, and I think that's what will come across on the album, is that it's a body of work, and it was recorded with the same people in the same place. And, hopefully that still stands for something in this day and age.
I think it definitely will. And I just, as a side note, love that story about Jackson Browne just popping his head in and being like, oh, I know what this track needs. So I feel like that there is almost what is it? Is it Blue-Eyed Soul? Like there is a feeling to this record.
So. I mean, yeah, I think this record more than ever, and like that was sort of the pitch, you know what I mean? Like, but Blue-Eyed Soul, everything came back to referencing there's always a soul thread, I think, through anything that I do, because I grew up singing that kind of music. And with all the horns on this album, that definitely, I feel like that gives it. And even the way that Rod Stewart used to incorporate soul into his music, it was, it was like, it was rock and roll, but there was always a soulness to it. And that's kind of, what we wanted to do. That's, we had a playlist of all of my favorite songs and all my favorite artists, and from Hall & Oates to Don Henley to Simply Red to the Rolling Stones. They were all big references. And then each song we would sort of, cater to that song while still trying to keep it in this cohesive thing that we were doing. So, yeah.
You've gotten to almost where I was going to jump to in a second was, some of the inspirations, I guess, were these artists or musicians, records that you would listen to when you were younger or when you first got into songwriting?
I think they're more on a singing level. I think, when I first started music, it was all about just singing and then writing came pretty much directly after that. But yeah, I think me and my manager, we would always say we call them grocery store records, and that was sort of like the elevator pitch for the album, was like that we were trying to write songs that were classic songs that you would hear in a grocery store in 50 years' time. There should be a playlist on Spotify called Grocery Store Records. I don't think there is, but I should make one. But it's those songs that, Every Breath You Take, like songs that literally will never go, like Age of Innocence, so that was sort of like, with every song we approached it like if it was a classic song, but we weren't trying to, do anything game-changing with the production or do something. We were just trying to write an iconic arrangement around a great song. So the songs were already pretty much written on a piano or on a guitar, and the melody and the lyric was there. So it was just more, what's the part, what's the riff that's going to make it iconic, or what's the drum fill that's going to make it give it its own thing. So I think you'll find that on all the records. Like, we put bagpipes on a song called Tell My Mama I Love Her, and we every song has its own sort of thing. Blood Sugar, which is a ballad on the album, we recorded strings at Capitol Records for that, and that was sort of like our All By Myself. So yeah, that was sort of, so to answer your question, sorry, I kind of sidelined your question. To answer your question, that is sort of what I grew up listening to, and classic songs were always on the radio and were always in the CD player. So anything from Michael Jackson to that whole Motown era, I grew up listening to a lot, and then later on found rock and roll.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
I feel like a number of these songs do kind of embody that classic songwriting that you're talking about and wanting to achieve. I feel like the goal has been achieved. I was hoping you might indulge me a little bit. I'm going to be a little bit selfish. We've spoken about the horns throughout the record, and one track, my favorite track on the record, was Slipping Away, which has some beautiful kind of light horns throughout it. I think Chef Kiss, for those people who can't see what I'm doing, it is a podcast. Would you mind just taking us through, I guess, the catalyst or the creation of that song, or where it came from?
That song, there's a couple on the record that I feel sit in that lane. Ego and Slipping Away were two songs that I wrote at a similar time. And I just wanted that smoky New York City, getting out of the club at 6 a.m, walking to the bodega kind of thing, song. And it started with just that really sexy piano part. And that's the thing, the horn guys that came in, they're so incredible. And Projay, the producer of the album, he's so incredible at arranging the horns. it was really all them. You know what I mean? I didn't really have, I was just sitting there in awe in the control room because Projay was sort of directing them. And it was just, you'd watch this song go from like, just this groove, and then those horns creep in, and it's just like automatically sets the tone for the whole entire song. And I think that the ego and Slipping Away specifically, the horns just make that record. It's very reminiscent of Simply Red, obviously, and songs like, from that era where they weren't shy to use the saxophone, and obviously neither were we on this album.
Well, look, I think that the lack of shyness has definitely worked in its favour. It is a beautiful track, so thank you for letting me ask about it. I know we've spoken a lot about the sonics. I would just love to, and without going into great detail, obviously a lot has changed in your life since the last record. Congratulations, because you have become a father since that last record. So, firstly, congrats. And I wonder, how does that change your lyrical songwriting approach, or inspiration-wise? How does it kind of...
Well, it's been interesting because obviously it's taken so long for this album to be finished and also even to come out. When Memphis was, I think the majority of the songs were written when Memphis, when I found out about Memphis. Do you know what I mean? Like it wasn't even, so he wasn't, well, the songs aren't about him essentially, but now I'm sort of like, I feel like the next record is going to be all about him because now I'm in that thoroughly in the trenches with my son. But I think it's just really like, it's put, even with the whole releasing this album, it's just put a lot of things into perspective in my life and in my career. And the music industry is such a tough industry, and I've been through it all pretty much, and been signed to every major record label there is. And, to still be here making music, it just, I guess having a kid has sort of put into perspective, isn't it? Like it's not the be all and end all of life, which is what it's always felt like to me. It was like, if it's not music, then it's not worth living. You know what I mean? And, I still feel that passion towards music, but I think having a kid has sort of made me realize that there's other things outside of music that will also put a smile on your face. So,
of course.
Yeah. So I think that, I think that the next album is going to be, obviously, the subjects will definitely be changing from what they were in the past.
That's very fair, and I'm
not like going to start the next Wiggles or anything like that. I think it's funny. It definitely obviously it changes everything, but it's just been this whole album, recording it has been a whirlwind of a journey, and even being able to release it has been a big journey as well. Just dealing with all that comes with that, and also trusting that, and just being like, okay, well, this is it, and we're putting this out to the world now, and however it is received, there's a time when we were making it, and it's like when you're making it and you're in the thick of it, it's like, shit, this thing is so incredible. Like this is going to change my life. You know what I mean? And then, it's two years later, it comes out, and you probably don't feel exactly the same as you do on that day that I remember when we wrote Precious in the studio, and I remember listening back to Precious and running around Beverly Hills in the afternoon on a jog, and it blaring through my headphones, the demo of it, and thinking like, geez, I'm going to win a Grammy for this. You know what I mean? Like, because it's just the excitement of the music, and now it came out this week, and I don't have that pressure on the album anymore. You know what I mean? I don't expect it to do that like I did back then. It's just more like I'm just so excited that, and I hope that whoever's listening to it feels the way I felt when I was running around on my jog, 2 years ago, hearing it for the first time. Because, you know what I mean by that?
Yes. Yeah, no. Yeah. It is there's a certain electricity, I'd say, about like when you're creating music, composing, lyric writing, whatever it is, and that I think that even having listened to it the last week or so, that there is that electricity still in it. For yourself, it's probably 2 years removed from that. So we're probably, as we've spoken to a number of artists about this, sometimes when you're speaking about this record, you've already got project number 3, 4, and 5 lined up in your mind. So you might not be,
That's the thing. Like, I'm already completely in next album mode. Or like, I haven't started it yet, but like I'm already thinking, okay, where are we going next? And before this one's even done its thing. So I think that's just a classic artist thing, isn't it? Just jumping ahead a little, but yeah.
It's the reason why you're an artist. There's a certain mentality to it, and it is a beautiful album, and there is a lot of people excited about this. Conrad, I believe a good handful of people got to see you play some shows in December, but can we expect to see a full-blown tour in support of the record at some point this year?
Yeah, definitely. And obviously the way that the album was recorded, I really wanted to sort of take that on the road, have the horns and have the full band set up, because it just really these songs just that's how they were born, and it's just you really got to see it with the whole band. So I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be able to bring Zane and the Victor and those kind of guys out to Australia, not unless this album does win a couple of Grammys. Maybe then we can have that conversation. But yeah, no, we'll definitely be announcing a tour pretty shortly. Actually, I think we're looking around June, July, some dates in Australia, and then yeah, just continuing to play as much as possible, because that's sort of that's what I love doing the most, and then heading back to the States again at the end of this year to start working on some new stuff.
That's very exciting. And when those dates are released, we'll make sure that we are promoting them on the podcast as well. Do you have any kind of tips for when you're on the road in terms of touring can sometimes be an extremely fun kind of endeavor, and sometimes it's a bit draining for those who are going out onto the road for the first time in this kind of odd post-COVID landscape? Do you have any recommendations or tips for how to do well in touring?
I think in this day and age, I think it's crazy hard at the moment, especially in this country, touring, and not being an international, domestically, and being a domestic artist, it's hard to sell tickets these days. And I think that there's so many people touring, internationals touring, and so much competition. It's just like, for me, I'm just grateful that I'm selling tickets, and that whether that's 300 or 500 people in a room, for me it's just be grateful. You know what I mean? Like, there's people, that's the definition of success to me, is that people are buying tickets to come see your show, whether you're selling records or not. That's really like the proof is in the pudding. People are paying $50 to come and see you, and they're standing there and waiting in line. Like, it doesn't get much better than that. And I think that the beautiful thing about touring and the beautiful thing about playing music live is every show is different. So, don't hold on to a bad show, I would say. If one night something can go terribly wrong, and the next night it can go perfect, and it's never going to be the same every night. That's the beauty of it. And just enjoy that. Enjoy that. That's the buzz, you know what I mean? That's the high, not knowing what the hell's going to happen or what the crowd's going to be like. Just sort of live in that moment, because that's what it's all about, I think.
100%. I think that's especially that point about not every night is the same night. I think that's a very good point that sometimes gets lost if you are having a difficult run of it. Conrad, we would usually ask our guests what they're currently listening to. Is there anything at the moment that is on high rotation for yourself?
What am I currently listening to? I have a playlist that I just sort of, it's called Conrad's Album Inspos, and it's a long running, it's a playlist that has been added to for the last 8 years. But what's funnily enough, I recently started giving, I've been listening to this Prince live album a lot. I've been listening, which is just it's called what is it called? I'll see if I can find it, because it's definitely worth listening to for anybody who hasn't. It's live from One Night Alone, the One Night Alone tour.
Okay.
The New Power Generation. So the tour was 2002. So it's just a live recording of Prince, which I listen to a lot. And then I've actually started listening to Adele a lot for some reason. I know that sounds like something that why doesn't everybody been there, done that? But I've never really given. Obviously, I know all the big songs, but for some reason, last couple of weeks, I just did a deep dive into Adele, it's kind of magic when you go back and listen to those albums, there were just the arrangements, and it's just all about her voice, and I think it's just something powerful about that. Those are the latest things I've been listening to. I also love this song by this guy, Medium Build. He has this cracking song. This is my tip for the great lyric in this song. It's called Give Me Back My Soul, Medium Build.
I've not heard that, but I will definitely be looking it up.
Great lyric.
After our chat. Also, two very solid picks. And I think there is nothing wrong with coming to an artist in your own time, if that kind of makes sense, regarding Adele.
Yeah, I think it's rare that you can, and maybe it's because she makes albums, and like Bruno does, and there's certain few artists these days that still continue to just put out a body of work, and she's the queen of that, I guess. And yeah, I hadn't given the new album. Obviously, I'd heard the big singles, but I hadn't listened to it from start to finish. And she's so vulnerable on that album, the most recent one. It's something really beautiful about that. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's never too late to find. We won't go too much further into Adele, but I only recently, in my own time, checked out or came to the music of the Red Hot Chili Peppers after years of kind of not believing the hype. Gave it time and was like, okay, yeah. It just sometimes it takes less hype for you to process it in your own way. There's always a reason why everyone's hype. You know what I mean? It's usually there's a reason why people think it's great, and that's the cool thing is that people know what they're talking about when it comes to music. Can't lie when it comes to music.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
Conrad, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today. I do appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
My absolute pleasure. Congrats on the new album, Precious. It is out now. All the details are in the show notes for people to go listen to. But yeah, once again, thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Heath, man. I appreciate it.
Discover Hydro, the best kept secret in fitness. Hydro is the state-of-the-art at-home rower that engages 86% of your muscles, delivering the ultimate full-body workout in just 20 minutes. From advanced to beginner, Hydro has over 500 classes, shot worldwide and taught by Olympians and world-class athletes. For a 30-day risk-free trial, go to Hydro.com and use code ROW450 to save $450 on a Hydro Pro rower. That's HYDROW.com, code ROW450.